And greetings, happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He is Aaron McIntyre. We are the Steve Deace Show. We are brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company, with a flavor for every freedom-loving American. Get yours today. But not just because they share your value system. That's not good enough for us around here. We expect excellence. So first, you have to have a good product. So before we said, yes, we'll promote, we made Aaron, who believes coffee is a food group, try it. And he raved about it. So since the coffee is good, now we will promote the company that shares our values. We believe in meritocracy here. FirstCup.com, use the promo code DACE to get a discount at FirstCup.com, promo code DACE for a discount at FirstCup.com. And it is because we believe in excellence. You know, you think in the annals of broadcast history, really just pop culture in general, there are some names that only require one name. Prince, Spock, Norm, and Stu. As he joins us this week for the Deace Group. And it's not just because I still, after all these years, have not figured out how to pronounce his last name, although that is part of the reason why. We welcome in the one and only Stu here for the Deace Group, my friend. Thank you for being bored enough to join us here this week. It is good to see you, brother. How are you?
Very well. It's not bored at all. It's quite an honor to be in the presence of a best-selling LGBTQIA2+ author. So I'm so excited to be here. Never thought I could say those words.
Well, Stu, I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you did, I just so happen to have a trusty graphic right here, Stu. If you can believe that. Wow, I mean, we just yanked that up out of nowhere, right? But there it is, listed right there. LGBTQFU books. Bestsellers. We reached bestseller status, and you can see we're in good company here, Stu. We're right next to Bury Your Gaze from Chuck Tingle. Beg for It, a dark Omegaverse story from Jen Bullard, and My Pucking Crush. Okay? So we're in very good, laudable, esteemed company here, in fact. But with all due respect, you helped us get there. You guys and several of the Blaze helped to give this thing some energy. I mean, we did this as a joke, but with a purpose. This is dark. Real darkness. We're trying to shine a light in that darkness. I mean, even the cover design from the rest of the books in this category, it looks like we are literally from another universe. You know why? We are literally from another universe. So I wanted to say thank you, Stu, for helping to make that happen, brother. Really appreciated the little push that you and Sarah and the team down there in Dallas gave us. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to draw attention to it. And unfortunately, not quite enough attention to get it past Chuck Tingle quite yet. But I do think that's right around the corner.
You got to wake up pretty early in the morning to get past Chuck Tingle, I'm told. Yes.
That's true.
Or maybe do some unspeakable things Glenn will fire us all for saying out loud. So we won't. All right. All right, let's begin with the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1. Bleep, Lord Nefarious says.
Just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that. Yeah,
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
You know, you and I have both been at Trump rallies. Those can be, you know, very tense, a kind of, I would say, like kind of a dark, malevolent energy sometimes in them. Not always, but it doesn't seem like that's the energy on the mall today, which I think is a good sign, right?
You have a living document that lives and breathes for the people, and that man is using it in corrupt, demonic ways, and he wants to talk about how the LGBTQ.
The country seems very scary for a lot of us today. There is a lot of bigotry that has always been there, but it has, I don't even want to say it has courage to to show its face because these people are cowards through and through. I can tell you that much.
How black communities, how POCs, how immigrants are the devil. That's only one devil I can see, and he sits in the White House.
Today's pronoun of the day is pup puppy. But why might someone want to use pup puppy as pronouns? It could also be a way to express a non-human identity. Some people feel that being human doesn't fully describe who they are, so they identify as non-human.
I'm Ronnie Winter. I sing for the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, and I actually follow what Jesus says. If you're a Christian and you're watching this and you voted for Donald Trump, shame on you.
I'm just so scared. I'm 74 years old. I worry about everything. And I just am so scared and upset, and I don't understand why people voted for this person.
To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries.
Now, who is the voice in the world that can negotiate some type of agreement in this? Who holds the moral authority? Who holds the ability to do that? Consistently over and over again, we're going to have to face the reality. It might be the Chinese.
That's the worst one we've had this month. I mean, that is a dispatch from the heart of darkness of Pride Month right there. That was the worst one we've had this month. At least I think so. What do you think?
Agreed.
So, Stu, as the guest, you get first dibs here. What was the most disgusting and vile thing you just saw, and why?
I've been on vacation all week, Steve.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Trying to follow the news from a bit of a distance, right? You go away, you try not to pay super close attention except for the big things. And I was going to come in here and tell you, like, I don't know, like, we're really, I mean, sure, we've got some depravity out there, right? Sure, there's a lot of bad things going on, but maybe we're only in the middle of the range here. Then I watched that montage, and now I'm like, oh gosh, we're just absolutely out of 10 on the scale here. We're all the way there. I don't know which one to pick. If I had to pick one out of that, and there's so many, I might pick the Whoopi Goldberg clip for many different reasons. She's such a dunce. And obviously, The View is essentially an American Idol for America's dumbest person. And they're really successful. They found, I think, the 5 or 6 dumbest in America. But it's fascinating from multiple perspectives that she could think that modern day Iran and modern day America for black people are the same, as she, as a black woman, is on television making millions of dollars with no credentials to do what she's doing on a day-to-day basis.
No, she just faked a Jewish name and acted in some mediocre movies, basically. Yeah.
Yes. You'll be surprised to hear, Steve, that there is no equivalent of a Jew in the middle of Tehran,
right?
Currently hosting a
Who's your favorite Goldberg named weather gal on Tehran television, Stu? Who's your favorite?
Yeah, there's nobody there, Steve. Just there's not an equivalent, so that's really bad. And also the other part, which is I think Alyssa Farah is her name. She was in the Trump administration and kind of made her career out of stepping out and becoming anti-Trump. And the fact is that it even crossed her line. The comment was so dumb that even an anti-Trumper who's paid to be anti-Trump had to point out the insanity of it.
That's a good one. That is a good one for sure. And the thing that you love about this, Todd, you used to call it invincible ignorance. Mm-hmm. They say these things with just such utter self-righteous pride. Like they are anxious to demonstrate their stupidity. They can't wait for you to be exposed to it over and over again. Todd, what was your
I'm tracking with Stu. I was going to go there as well because, listen, as vile as they've come to believe in the things that they claim to believe, whether they be politicians or the trannies up on stage or the people at protests, listen, because of the American experience and First Amendment rights, etc., we're always going to have varying degrees of red light districts of thought, even under the best of circumstances. But this is why it's the worst. Whoopi and Farah corporately being paid. They're not just coming on as a guest. They are paid every day to come on a show by a legacy media organization called ABC over and over and over again to, as Stu said, be retarded and or deeply immoral.
And don't forget, gay!
See,
yes.
This is what we need. We're always going to have damn fools out there. But the fact that they, as a network, are just doubling and tripling down and they aren't moving off that cliff, that's concerning. That keeps me, honestly, the fact that what we think we're living in the halcyon days right now, Make America Great Again, but we gotta, if at the end of 4 years, that is still inevitable, we're handing something deep and dark off to our children. It's not just here in the moment.
Amen.
Ultimately, that cannot last.
Amen. Aaron, what about you?
Dang, that was where I was going to go as well. So just a brief comments. This will be my runners. It's just a deeply poisonous thing. What she just articulated was not only retarded, but it was very poisonous because there are swaths in America who actually believe that. She's not a rarity. She's not a one-off. There are people, and I don't know how big those swaths are, however large they are too large, but they actually believe that a woman who is probably worth in the tens of millions of dollars, at least millions of dollars, in this country is telling them that she is worse off because of the color of her skin than people in Iran. And there are people, I believe, that actually believe that. That is just poisonous. It's just poisonous. So let's go to Tiananmen Tim. Maybe it's true. America has just lost its standing in the world. And that we're going to have to rely on the Chinese to broker peace deals all around the world. Because nothing says moral standing quite like the Chinese Communist Party. Might I suggest that Tiananmen Tim is not really the one to make that message? I think we'll just leave it there.
By the way, what do you guys think the viewership is for The View? I just looked it up. What do you think it is?
What's the metric per what?
The total, before we break for demographics, what do you think the total Cume viewership is for The View?
For a day or just an average show?
An average show. What its total Cume viewership is. What do you think it is?
It's teetering on 1 million.
It's a little more than that.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say 2.5.
Todd is correct. Wow. That's exactly what it is. Now, it generates way more engagements than that per day in writing media. I'll tell you that. So I'm almost wondering if the show just exists to provide us content at this point, okay? Because there is a disproportionate amount of clicks generated from our side of that show compared to its actual viewership. It ain't 1-to-1. It's more like 1-to-5, if I had to guess. Or the Doors one saying 5-to-1. All right? Let's get to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds our beloved sister and colleague Jill Savage ever has to be concerned about being sexually harassed by Lindsey Graham, and 10 being the odds that poor Stu here does. All right. Watch your 6, Stu. Watch your 6, brother. All right. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Todd.
10.
Oh, I love getting people's reaction to that for the first time. Aaron?
10.
All right. Stu, what about you?
I'll go 8. There's a couple good things. I didn't see them in that montage, but there was a couple good things this week.
You left them back on vacation, Stu. You left them on vacation. Yes. All right. All right. Let's get to issue 2, the Right's Great Debate.
Amidst the ongoing Israel-Iran war, a gigantic rift has appeared, at least in the online right-wing space. In one corner, you have those who are unapologetically in agreement with Israel taking its decisive action against Iran, an attempt to deprive them of nuclear weapons once and for all, and potentially regime change, and those who, to a varying degree, could either be talked into limited U.S. involvement in the war or who overtly support it. In the other corner, you have a camp who is sick and tired of any semblance of Middle Eastern or foreign adventurism and who understandably wish to not touch such entanglements with a 10-foot pole. This debate has raged for months, really, but has reached a fever pitch in the last week, notably when former Fox News host Tucker Carlson became outspoken in his criticism of President Trump's handling of the Israel-Iran issue, prompting Trump to call Carlson kooky and reminding him of his long-held position that Iran cannot have a nuclear missile. Fortunately, it sounds like Trump and Carlson patched things up pretty quickly this week, agreeing to disagree.
Now, of course, kind of the seminal event for the sake of our show, Tucker. I'm sorry, Stu, to put this in language and symbols everybody would understand. I just chose like the two biggest names of people I know in the two camps that Aaron discussed to kind of that our audience would know. So on our show we're calling him Team Levin and Team Tucker. Right now, within these two variations, there's lots of different opinions. Okay, but just for a meta banner of who we're talking about, and then of course after we did that, these guys started arguing with each other and calling each other names on X, which made it easier for us to do that. Actually, ironically enough. All right, but we saw this debate. You know, Ted Cruz, who's very close to Mark Levin, appeared with Tucker on his show. They went back and forth for 2 hours. So you kind of saw a Team Levin, Team Tucker debate. All right, so how do you think, Stu, the right is handling this debate? Do you think it is constructive for the most part so far or destructive? Because frankly, in terms of what our foreign policy epistemology is going to be on the right, we are starting from ground zero after the failure of the last era, right? And so we're now like terraforming what our new rubric is going to be, which means there's a lot of voices in the room and a lot of people want to have a say, right? And so that's going to be a messy process. You have to, like a handicap on a golf course, you have to account for the fact that there's going to be messy with this many new voices to be heard from. So is it constructive or destructive, do you think?
I think it's destructive, honestly. And after hearing your telling, I think it's your fault. You clearly designated the teams in advance and have caused all of this, Steve. I think, you know, it's complicated, I think. You know, I would go destructive if having to pick one of those because I just don't like the way it's been done. I think the conversation's actually really valuable. And it's a conversation I think we all have to have. I've changed a little bit on this over the years. I probably would have been more hawkish previously. And over time, I've grown to be a little bit more skeptical of our success rate when it comes to overseas adventures.
Or not to be skeptical of 0.0. But anyway, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, it's not good. It's Angel Reese shooting percentage territory, and that's not positive.
Nice blast.
So I am, I can understand that. And that debate I think is really important. I don't like how everyone has jumped to this. Hey, my opponent in this debate is a murderous heathen that is paid for by a foreign government. Yep. Everyone seems to jump to that. Only people on my side are pure, and everyone else on the other side is going to be this evil person that is just bloodthirsty. Watching the Tucker and Ted Cruz back and forth, I didn't get anything out of that. At least in the clips that came out initially. I know the whole thing's out now, and I want to watch the entire thing. I haven't watched it all yet. So I do think that we can learn a little bit from what's happened over the first couple of weeks of this and just say, hey, we're adults. Like, you guys, I listen to you guys. You're adults. You talk about things in constructive ways. You often have people on who disagree with you at points and come to better solutions because you're treating each other with the intent that the worst possible outcome is not what people are going for. Mm-hmm. I don't think Mark Levin is out there because he's bloodthirsty for Iranian flesh. I don't think that Tucker Carlson is solely coming to this opinion because he's being paid for by the government of Qatar. Like, I just feel like there's a disagreement here, a real schism inside of conservatism. We should instead try to find a way to get through this and figure out if we can actually build a coalition rather than just trying to destroy everyone who we agree with probably on 90% of issues.
All right. What do you think?
It sounds like Stu is just like narrowly on the side of destructive. I think I'm narrowly on the side of constructive. But to his point, like the narcissism behind a lot of these arguments.
To be fair, Stu, the douchier it gets, the more optimistic Todd will become. You just should know that.
That's true.
Okay,
good.
Go ahead, yes.
But he's right about stop making this isn't your little debate society thing where you might get a new patch on your sweater or something if you win. Like, this is way bigger than that. So I agree with Steve. With Stu, but I will say I think it's constructive to the point there are arguments coming out in this that I don't think a lot of people are very aware of, that going forward, no matter what happens in the Middle East, I think will be helpful. Aaron and I had this conversation off air yesterday, but just about like people's sense of dispensationalism, like what that really is theoretically. And quite frankly, I didn't know that Ted Cruz himself was that bound to it. When he said his number one reason...
His daddy's a Southern Baptist minister, brother.
I get it, but he's also been the guy who ran for president, debate society master, all of that stuff. And he didn't even like massage it as one. He just put that right there as number one. It is a good thing, no matter what, to go all in on Israel. I mean, I really don't think there's a lot of people who truly understand how individuals apply thinking, Christian thinking, as it applies to Israel in their geopolitics. And I think that's helpful for all of us going forward. We've been blind to some degree. We talk about Christian nationalism. Obviously, Tucker and Ted are two guys that 5 seconds ago would have been accused of that by people on the left. But here they are shooting at each other with diametrically opposed positions on Israel. I think it's helpful to know our terms.
By the way, his dad's a great Southern Baptist minister. Saw him in Dallas about a week ago. Still going strong, man. He's a mensch. He's a dude. Aaron.
I think it has been, just from what I have seen, I think it has been slightly destructive. I just think that there are so many preconceived notions, and as I've said, this has been building for months, and in some cases with some individuals for years, and it's really reached a head recently. And so it's really difficult, especially when we're talking about high stakes here. We're talking about maybe fates of countries, fates of loved ones, of our service members. You know, there's a lot of emotion into this. So you understand why people get very, very tense, and this becomes a very tedious debate very quickly. Mm-hmm. But I do think it has been destructive because instead of just everyone taking it, I know maybe I'm expecting too much. Instead of everybody taking a step back, giving a lot of people who are in the same coalition, as Stu said, agree on 90% of the things. And because we agree on so much, let's treat each other in charity. There's been very little charity. And that goes for both sides of this debate. I'm not going to say.
I think it's very unfair. I love Ted, but I thought it was very unfair of my old boss to pull out things that Tucker said 10, 15 years ago about the Middle East before we were fully knowledgeable of our failures there as some kind of gotcha. I thought that was very unfair. And I think it was also very unfair for the first clip that Tucker puts out. They talked for 2 hours. He sat down with one of the smartest U.S. senators in America for 2 hours. And the lead promotional clip is amazing facts, bar bets, how many people live in Iran. That's the first promo clip. I mean, again, both sides. I know both those guys. I know one a little bit better than the other, but I know both those guys. They're both way smarter than that. Okay. So yeah, I agree with you there, Aaron. So let's do this. Let's try to wait. Well, first of all, motion. All right. Motion. If you begin a sentence with in this era with, I think my expectations are probably too high, automatically assume the answer is yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll just skip the second and go right to the vote. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's try to raise the bar here for a minute then. All right. What kinds of conversations, because we do need to hash this out. We do. We are, pardon the pun, we are starting from ground zero in terms of what we had a unified foreign policy post 9/11. Go fight them over there so they don't come back over here. We had a unified foreign policy from the time of Eisenhower to Goldwater to Reagan about we have to stop the Soviet Union and its influence in the world. Okay, we don't have a unified foreign policy on the American right for really the first time probably since Roosevelt and Taft. So we're going back like more than 100 years now. All right. So we do need to have a hash out. We do need to have a debate about this. So, and Trump is pushing 80, and he's not an ideologue anyway, which I think is to our benefit in this situation. He's just a pure pragmatist. All right. He's just going to follow what he thinks is the best solution at the time. But we do need to have some kind of homiletic moving forward about what is the foreign policy here, at least what is the starting point that we agree on, okay, that we can then apply and then maybe disagree whether that applies from there. How would we do that? Give one question you think would elevate the debate that we need to debate and discuss. Stu, I'll start with you.
One question. I think war, and this is the way I've thought about this as I was talking about kind of changing over the years, coming to a place where war is more singularly as a last resort. I don't want to go to war. I want to try everything else that I can. However, I do think that the American position of strength is an important one for the globe. I still think that, I don't want a multipolar world where we are right, in alignment with in power structure with Russia and China. I don't think that's good for the world. I like the point of leadership that we are and that we've had at least for a long time. So when I look at this, I think the important line to talk about is where that last resort checkbox is marked.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it this way here, if I'm in Israel and I'm an Israeli citizen, I think we're a lot closer to that checkbox mark than I am here in the United States right now when it comes to Iran. And that's why I feel like them doing what they're doing here is something that I can understand and very much support in a way that, like, even with like where maybe a more where we have more agreement on the right now might be on, like, let's say Ukraine, where as far as skepticism goes, I still feel the same way that, like, if I were a talk show host in Ukraine right now, like, this idea that we're just going to stop and let them have a giant chunk of our territory would probably not be the way I felt. America first, to me, means that we prioritize our country and our interests first. But we don't ignore the rest of the world. We don't say America only. And I think, when it comes to Israel doing what they're doing, I would say I support what they're doing. I think they should, in this moment, considering they've taken out the sort of forward defense that Iran has leaned on all of these years, this is probably a moment that they can't let slip by for them. That doesn't mean that we have to be involved in a serious way. And so I think, like, our involvement, that line, where is it? Is it something that we tick off only when we're attacked, only in those moments, or do we step into a situation like this? That's, I feel like, where the debate should be, not, hey, you're the most, you're a violent warmonger and you're being paid for by other countries.
Did you fall for the Zionist psyop of dispensationalism, and how much Qatari money have you been taking? Do you think it should maybe be a little higher than that?
Yeah, I think it should be higher. Like, I want 2-3 commas before I'm selling out here, okay. And I don't know why. My payments are low. It's like my payments on X at this point. They're like $12, and it's just like, come on, Israeli government, step it up.
All right. We got 3 minutes here. Aaron and Todd, you get a minute and a half apiece to respond. What do you think? You agree with Stu? You have something else you want to ask?
Just, reiterating my commitment to realism. Regardless of whether or not you like it, we do live in not globalism, but we are in an era of globalism, okay? Whether it's economically, whether it's politically, it is an era of globalism. And that primarily plays out through economics. It's very much a Rube Goldberg machine. So you have to accept that. At this point, the United States can't just hit the eject button. So with that being said, I think the rubric for any foreign action that is above and beyond or differentiating from the status quo, I think you just have to make the case, ask the question, how does this benefit basically the heartland of the United States? Not the coastal elites, but the people who are actually doing all of the living and dying around here. And you might have
where most of our voters are.
Where most of your voters are.
Yeah.
And just make the case to those people why this or that or the other thing is actually necessary.
I like the idea of prioritizing the interest of our own constituencies as a way of uniting us. I like that idea. Todd?
In a world where you've got Judaism, Islam, dispensationalism, all in the mix, you need a filter. Steve, a couple days ago, you asked a question about just war theory. I think we need to dust that off and get back in the gym with that and put some muscles on it and apply it.
I like it. All right, let's get to the exit question. Which side of the argument do you think is most likely to win? Team Levin, Team Tucker, or some kind of little bit of both? Todd?
I'm not going to chicken out and say I don't know, because I think that's my most honest answer, but I will err narrowly on the side of Tucker right now. Not because I'm choosing it as a value that I share. I'm just, or in the other direction. I'm narrowly going with Tucker.
I mean, listen, it does seem like Team Levin had all the momentum throughout the week, but then the president's announcement on Thursday that he's going to give Iran 2 more weeks, that's kind of a Team Tucker move there, right, Aaron? You can see Trump is massaging these coalitions. I think he's doing it very well, by the way, okay? Because they represent equal parts of his base. What do you think? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I think, to me, Team Levin includes people who are just saying, Israel, go get them, and not necessarily cheering for American involvement.
Yes.
So I think one way or another, regardless of whether America gets involved, I'm narrowly on Team Levin.
That's interesting analysis too. If you include that group, because what was the one thing we said on?
That's my primary group.
What was the one thing we said on Thursday's show? The one thing we were certain about is Israel's going to go all the way to what it views as completion here. That's the one thing we were certain about. All right, Stu, I've got about a minute. Which of these teams, or do you think will win, or do you think it'll be a little bit of both?
I mean, I think there's certainly a debate going on, and I think a little bit of both is probably the right answer. I would say I would lean Team Levin as well. I mean, the American people, I think, generally speaking, they see Iran as a threat. Yeah. They do see Israel as an ally, and so I mean, some of the polling showing 70% support are going after them. Not for us to get involved, though. Yeah. I think we want distance from this, but I do think that does fall into the Team Levin category. I mean, Tucker seems to be completely out on all of this stuff right now, and I don't think that's where the American people are. By the way,
Stu, you remember when Trump had after his inaugural, his highest approval rating real quick? Do you remember what it was? When he killed...
off the top of my head, I don't.
The Iranian general, Soleimani. That was the highest one he had.
Oh, Soleimani, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll come back. Have we finally found where the rubber band and the culture war snaps back? Stay tuned.
The Steve Deace Show.
Hey, you guys have heard us talk about Patriot Mobile here on the show for years now. And, I talked about them for years before I finally joined. I just didn't want to make the switch from T-Mobile. Thought it'd be a big hassle. And then one day in the spring of 2020, they sent out a mass text to all their clients saying, we're going to start editing your COVID text for misinformation. And I got a hold of our sales rep here at the Blaze. Hey, which one of y'all handles Patriot Mobile? And we're making the switch now. That was enough. Haven't looked back ever since, man. I mean, they have been fantastic. First of all, they have a U.S.-based customer service team. What's that mean? It means you can actually understand what the heck they're saying. That's what it means. All right, they bend over backwards for you. They'll customize it for you. Keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. It's been a seamless transition for our family now. It's been 5 years almost. Actually, now, almost exactly 5 years since we made the switch to Patriot Mobile. Have not looked back. Now, here's the thing. You might be thinking, I'd love to do that today, Steve, but I'm locked in to a contract that I just signed, unfortunately, with a communist company. Well, they've got up to a $500 buyout per device at Patriot Mobile as well. So check it out and see if that applies to you and can help you get out of that deal so that you don't have to give money to people who hate you, and you can help build the parallel economy today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. That's patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the offer code Steve too. When you go there, they'll start you off with a free month of service too. Can't beat that. patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the offer code Steve. All right, we welcome back the one and only Stu. As we continue with your weekly look at the week that was, let's get to issue 3. Have we finally found where the rubber band snaps back?
This week, the Supreme Court posted a win for reality in the United States v. Scrimeti suit, upholding the Tennessee law that bans meatball surgery for minors in the name of gender. The usual suspects, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson, voted against the law in the 6-3 decision. An excerpt of the majority opinion in the case reads, quote, "The court's role is not to judge the wisdom, fairness, or logic of the ban on meatball surgery, but only to ensure that the law does not violate equal protection guarantees. It does not. Questions regarding the law's policy are thus appropriately left to the people, their elected representatives, and the democratic process." The court's decision opens the door for states to begin enforcement of rules designed to protect children from harmful and evil gender ideology taken to extremes with chemical castration and the aforementioned meatball surgery.
By the way, we should have done this when it came up earlier on the show this week, but a couple of well-respected people in our industry that both are Tennessee natives, Robbie Starbuck and, of course, Matt Walsh over at Daily Wire. Those guys deserve like the Mo Cheeks, John Stockton assist for this. They were instrumental in what happened in Tennessee and this bill and with their activism. Great examples of guys that are not just, doing this in theory and then going home, but are actually getting their hands dirty and in the community right where they live. So they played a part in this win. So that came out of their home state. So wanted to recognize them for that. All right. So Todd, let me start with you. Is tranny madness, all 6, John Roberts included, on board now? Is tranny madness finally the point where the culture is saying no and drawing a line?
No, because the people are the problem. We need to take back every sphere of our society, and this is an expert class that we need to take back undoubtedly. So not only on this issue, but on multiple issues. I mean, Steve will take over from there on the problems we have with our judges. But ultimately, the fact that it got this far and this deep It could have been stopped all along the way in our schools. The minute this it came to anybody's attention at all, it should not have taken what Steve said of the Herculean efforts of those guys in the media. We've fallen asleep on the switch in so many ways. I don't want to be needlessly pessimistic, but I think we're lying to yourselves if we think this is over. There are an entire entity called the public schools full of teachers who said we ain't going anywhere.
Aaron, and just to clarify, by saying the rubber band snapback, I'm not saying it's over. I mean, like, this is where now we've stretched it so far, and now the reverb hits is what I meant. But okay. I'm sorry, Aaron.
You're going to shoot me, but I'm going to bust out this term again. I believe the curve has been flattened when it comes to the madness of the rainbow jihad. And I truly believe that. And you'll recall during the times of COVID, all of these non-pharmaceutical interventions, wear a face mask, social distancing, limits to how many people can be in a building at the same time. Those life-saving arrows on the floor at the grocery store, those are cool as well. I have the best non-pharmaceutical intervention, though, to flatten and completely crush the curve of the rainbow jihad.
Is you saying it going to get us demonetized?
No.
Okay,
I have the ultimate.
Right.
I have the ultimate curve crusher, and it's a non-pharmaceutical intervention called a dad.
That does work.
Yes,
it's proven to work.
As soon as the dads just start doing your jobs, and you show up. If you're in Minnesota, if you show up in Minnesota and you say, no, dude, you cannot pitch softballs against my daughters, that's when this curve will get crushed. I promise you.
That's the other thing that differentiates.
It's the best non-pharmaceutical intervention that's ever been invented.
That's the other thing that differentiates Richie Meets the Rainbow from the other current bestsellers in the LGBTQ category. Dad means something totally different in that book than it means in the other ones.
Aaron's just as pessimistic as you. Aaron, what's the over-under on Dad's preparation level and interest level in doing that?
About the same as the COVID jab from actually stopping.
Higher odds. Jill Savage gets sexually harassed by Lindsey Graham, or never mind.
We're in trouble.
All right, Stu. All right, what do you think? Is the rubber band snapping back?
I will say when it comes to the drag queen story hour and related activities, I have practiced social distancing, and it has worked really well in my life. I just want to make that very clear. The one time that worked, here it is. I do think I think we've seen a big snapback. I think we have seen that. It is interesting to note, though, like when we're talking about. The debate has been publicly a lot about, should, men play in women's sports? Is that fair to people? Or, where a girl might lose a bronze medal and instead, get nothing. And that's been an important part of the debate. And that's where we've been fighting it. I think because it's so obvious, right? It's super obvious. This is a place where I think this connects with dads and moms, right? It activates them because they see their own kids being affected by it. What's fascinating about this is the left are making a public argument that there's very few of these people there's almost no examples of the women's sports situation. They'll make the thing of we just want to leave people alone and we don't want this to be they might commit suicide. You don't want them to commit suicide, do you? And they make those types of arguments. But where we see the rubber hit the road with a massive pushback and a massive protest this week was on a Supreme Court ruling about whether minors should have these types of treatments, and not even whether they should or not. It's just whether they can be stopped from having them in some states, in some treatments. Like, this is a massively extreme version of what the transgender public fight has been about. And the fact that they're reacting this way to that, this is a tiny, tiny step, a tiny snapback when it comes to the Supreme Court ruling. I thought that was really revealing.
You have thoughts on what he just said there?
Yeah, it's just we've got to respect.
In the fact that the other side has no standards at all?
The evil has been, we've convinced ourselves, it was kind of bad, but we've kind of moved on. I just don't think we allow ourselves to way too many lies these days. This was a level of darkness that rivals darkness throughout all of human history.
let's get to the exit question because I want us to have plenty of time to get to the fourth kicker topic, okay? If the future of Pride Month, which is currently muted from the debauched excesses of the not-too-distant past, if the future were an Elton John song, which Elton John song would it be?
That's perfect.
Did you like that?
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought you would. Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road, I'm Still Standing, or The Bitch Is Back? Aaron.
You know what? I'm going to be optimistic on a Friday. Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road.
When I saw Elton on his farewell tour, came out, he did a encore, and that was the encore song. It was Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road. Go ahead, Todd.
I'm Still Standing.
That's a very Todd as an answer.
Well, I didn't go all the way. I mean, I could have done The Bitch Is Back.
Right. Oh no, that's the worst answer. It means it's not going away. It's been here all along. We can't get rid of it.
I know.
That's the worst answer.
I know. I didn't give the worst answer.
No, yes, you did. Okay, go ahead. Stu, what do you think it is?
I'm a child of the 80s. I've got to go. I'm Still Standing on this one. I do think that is where we are, though. We shouldn't get cocky from a few victories.
I agree that we should not.
Even this one, it's a very limited victory at the Supreme Court. It's the right choice. I'm glad they went that way. There's a lot of work to do here. There's a lot of work to catch up to Europe. And that is saying that is a mouthful. So I'm Still Standing. I can't get any more optimistic than that.
All right, I feel like I need to go read more of the books in the LGBTQFU category after you just said that. I'm depressed. All right, we got to catch up to Europe, guys. Godless Europe. All right, where they sell churches for mosques. We have to catch up to them, and he's right about that. So let's do this. Let's get to the kicker topic this week. If you could pick another issue to have the rubber band and the culture snap back, what would it be and why? Todd.
College football, obviously.
I just wanted to get that out of the way because I knew it was coming. Absolutely. All right, Aaron.
You know, there's a number of things, a number of really menial things like the ridiculous tips that you're always asked for everywhere you go. That would be a nice thing to snap back. Although I do think that has started. I'm going to go.
All right, hold on. Can you bring that, since you brought that up? All right, dude code. 4 dudes here. Did the dude code demand you always round up? Or if it's for a veteran, if it depends on what it is. If it's for a veterans charity, you have to round up. Or are you the dude who says they're just going to take my money and use it as their tax-deductible donation and write it off?
Yep, that's
on my
exactly
behalf.
what it is.
So screw those guys.
That is exactly what that is.
All right, so Todd, we've got Stu and Aaron saying the dude code says not to round up. You're just giving these corporations a tax write-off on your behalf. What do you think, Todd?
I think Casey's is doing pretty well for themselves.
Because the thing is, I always click yes, but I wish it's because I'm just worked over by what Allie calls toxic empathy. But it's really just because I know it's easier for the wife to balance the checkbook if you get to a round number. That's why I do it.
Compartmentalization like I've never seen it before. College football ruining everything in college sports. I just can't find the page in the dude code that's on. But here, rounding up.
Yes,
we're gonna go there.
What's the verdict on rounding up, Todd? What do you think? Do you have to do it?
I'm pro rounding up. I don't think you have to though.
All right. Anyway, back to the kicker topic.
By the way, just to get that out, I am not. And the rounding up thing bothers me. Number one, I'm approving some charity, and you know what some of these charities are. Some of them are so sketchy. You have no idea where that money is actually going.
Right.
And I'm totally with you on the write-off thing. That's something that is totally unpromoted. I'm glad you pointed it out. This is them. This is them getting goodwill for themselves off of your dollar. I'm a flat no on it, and I like when they look at me like, kind of like, gosh, I can't believe you're a monster. Ask me. I beg you to ask me. I want the fight.
Stu walks into Lowe's wearing a shirt. Line. Ask me if I round off. Ask me if I round off. All right.
Tipping is different. I'm happy to give a good employee a tip. Like I'm happy to do that. That's certainly if they do something positive. But the rounding off thing, charity means you need to look into these things and know where the money's going. And I'm a flat no on the rounding.
He obviously appreciates a fine brand of vinegar because that answer was just I'm swooning, quite frankly.
Yeah, Todd reconsidering his position. Actually, yes. He's like, wait a minute, no one can be douchier than me here. What are we talking about? That can't happen. All right. Anyway, back to the original question, Aaron. Where would you like the rubber band to snap back?
Totally with Stu on tipping. Good employees. It's like it's the baristas who didn't do anything but hand you your drink. I'm out on that. I got my haircut a couple of weeks ago. She charged me not nearly as much as a typical haircut. Guess what she got? A huge fat tip. Let's say, on a more serious note, property taxes. Let's just have a nationwide revolt against that.
I like it.
It's just immoral. You can own your
Renting the home you own?
but you're never actually owning it. That's just not right.
I like it. All right, Todd, what about you?
What about me? What?
If you
football.
You already did football.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
I forgot. You know,
Asked and answered.
You know what happened is Stu actually got lower to the ground than you, and it just totally threw me off. I forgot you spoke for a second. All right, so Stu, what is the issue that you want to snap back on?
I would definitely echo the property tax. I would add payroll tax to that one too. But I was gonna go just spending. I would like us to have a party in the United States that cared about it. I wish there was one. It used to be.
Have you considered having a country that cares about it first? Have you consideed that first? Yeah, that'd be nice.
Now Stu lost my respect. He believes in unicorns now, so this is not going to happen.
No, again, I'd like it to snap back to at least a position. And again, I'm not a fabulist. I don't believe that anyone ever cared about this apparently. But at least we at one point had a Republican Party who said they cared. Like Can
you guys lie to me again? Lie to me again. That was fun.
At least go back to the point where we would at least create some interest where somebody would say they cared about it. Now we have two parties that don't care about it at all. And I feel like that's why we're even going farther out of control. So
Stu was like, it used to be that you guys bought me a nice dinner first and I salvaged some of the dignity that I was going to let go of later in the evening. But now you do not even grant me that courtesy.
Oh my goodness,
correct.
That is great.
Right.
No, I will not round up, but I need the Republicans to tell me I'm pretty every once in a while. This is what
every once in a while. Thank you, Todd.
All right, let's get to
I don't need it every day.
Just every now and then. Be nice to hear. Let's get to predictions. Aaron, go.
I believe one way or another, Iran will be denuclearized. I do not believe this will necessarily lead to a regime change, although it will be incredibly weakened and ripe for a regime change.
All right. What about you, Todd?
The Orthodox Protestant civil war that is currently going on, and we've had members of both sides on this show, that'll actually be deepened and prolonged because of what's going on with Israel and Iran, because of this arguments coming out. That issue might not be on the table for us 2 weeks from now, but it's going to be deepened over there.
I agree, because it's also revealing a generational split here too. Young men are flocking back to the church, and the two places they're going the most are Catholicism and Reformed theology. And both of those views, even though they have they went to war with each other 500 years ago, but they both have the same view of Israel, and it's not the dispensational view. And so that's going to cause friction with parents and grandparents who have that, right? All right, Stu, go ahead. What's your prediction?
I will predict regime change, and by that I mean Steve Deace dethrones Chuck Tingle.
So say we all.
It happens. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God!
Down goes Frazier.
I've got a tingle going up my leg. Easy, yes. My prediction. You know what? I was going to change it, but I'm going to actually keep it and be happy that I was wrong. Okay, because my original prediction when I did the rundown is that the 2-hour conversation between two brilliant men, because they chose to lead with a stupid bar bet trivia question, it was just gonna get memed to death and drown out the conversation. I have been pleasantly surprised in the last 36 hours or so how much the other issues they brought up, including the eschatological differences between the two, has actually taken the place of that. And the senator deserves some credit. The senator has gone out of his way to promote the fullness of the interview. All right. So my prediction that I was going to give is wrong, but I'm still going to give it because in this case, I like the fact that it ended up being wrong before I even got to it, because this is the kind of conversation we need to have more of. Just maybe a little less Jane, you ignorant slut in the middle of it. Okay. Stu, good to see you as always, brother. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. It was a ton of fun. All right, he's gone, but we've got another hour to go. It's called Feedback Friday, and it's your turn. We get to it here next. Stay tuned. Here with Hour 2 here on a Friday. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzen, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. You can all let us know, though hopefully not all at once, what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please, 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 please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Rookie numbers, they're going to get those up. All right. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. You can also, if you wouldn't mind, if you love the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of those. You've left us a lot. Thank you for each and every one. You can also hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes these days, hit follow instead. And that'll make sure that every time we do one of these new episodes, it's right there in your feed every single time. So thank you for that too. All right, this part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Real Estate Agents I Trust in these unprecedented times.
Bing.
Make sure that you are ready with an agent to guide you through a process that has gone and undergone a lot of changes since the last time we had a real estate market that mattered, late 2019 or so. All right, so it's been a minute, but we're trying to make real estate great again in America. We've had maybe 6 signs in my neighborhood, which was a pretty coveted suburban neighborhood in Des Moines here for the last 20 years. We had maybe 6 signs the last 5 years. We got 6 signs up right now. Right, so people are getting itchy now. They sense the thing's going to turn around. Interest rates may soon go down. All right, time to make America great again, get America working, moving again. Well, now you need to make sure you've got an agent that can get you and make you great at least once, if not again. So go to realestateagentsitrust.com. You'll find that agent there. We'll connect you with somebody whose track record of success we verified for you or wouldn't recommend them to you. And they're going to be from the area you're in or the area you want to get to. And they're often from right here in the Blaze audience as well. Realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that is realestateagentsitrust.com. And you can help us to continue to climb the rings of hell known as the LGBTQ ranks over at Amazon.com. Now that I am a certified by none other than Jeff Bezos himself. I am a certified LGBTQ best-selling author, user achievement master troll unlocked. You can help us climb the rings of hell here. You can only hang out with Bury Your Gays and by Chuck Tingle and beg for it and my pucking crush for so long. But I fear what evil may await as we climb these rings of hell in these rankings, gentlemen. Do you even want to speculate? Maybe such horrors that not even Lindsey Graham would verbalize.
It's a brave new world, Steve. That's all I know.
It is. I mean, this stuff is just freaking vile, man. It's just vile. And this is hardly the show for prudes. This stuff is vile. Okay.
Big market for millstones, though.
Now
My side hustle's doing just okay.
Yes, not all heroes wear capes, but all villains should wear millstones. I think we all agree on that.
We do.
All right, you guys ready to get to it? Some Feedback Friday?
Yes.
You bet. So I decided to do this. We had a ton of good emails this week, but I started feeling bad. We're getting to the halfway point of the year now, and there are several notes that I have just not been able to get to yet, okay? So I made an executive decision. I'm going to try to have us clear out as many of the older notes that I've been holding on to for Feedback Friday as I possibly could.
So 2.
Todd, be an encourager. Be an encourager.
No.
We can at least get to 3.
Okay.
All right. Maybe 4. All right. So I'm going to start back to front on my list this week, except for this one. All right, because this one is very timely for now. Keith writes, let me ask you, Steve, would you ever say, hope you have a great Mother's Day out there. Sure hope you earned it. No, of course you wouldn't. But you did that to the dads before Father's Day. Sure hope you earned it. You weren't being funny. It was a jibe as you intended it to be, in the middle of a statement apparently wishing fathers well on their day. This is the misandry I'm talking about on your show. By the way, good use of the term misandry. That we need to make misandry great again. That is an underrated term. All right? So Keith, I'm impressed that you yanked that out on me, right? If you're dropping misandry, you can pretty much say anything about me you want at that point. I'm just verbally that impressed, all right? This kind of double standard misandrist, he then used it in another context and properly. Keith, this kind of double standard misandrist BS just makes me seethe. Will you please put down your hatred of your absent father and quit hating on men on your show, dude? From Keith.
You
Sir,
started
this
off
is a
before,
Wendy's.
yeah. Before reading that letter, you said, why can't I be encouraging? And then you started off like, what do you expect me to do with that? Really? Look me in the eye. What do you expect me to do with that? What did you do, Karen? Deborah?
Keith?
God.
No, listen, I'm just a big believer there's higher standards for men. And there should be. That's what headship's about. Just higher standards for men.
This is what I'm talking about all the time. And you said you throw a rock into a pack of dogs. The one he can't
sounds like you're going to accuse Keith of some misandry.
I'm gonna accuse Keith of a lot of things. If you let me continue to speak, but unless you are, I don't know, this is real.
Yeah, I got this.
You think he's really upset though?
Yes.
He's not like trying to.
There's a few guys that have emailed me along these lines in the past that I'm too unfair to the guys.
This is who we're talking about. Then you have a lot. You have a laundry list of. I know you do. A laundry list of excuses. The women who've done you wrong. I've earned a right to play my video games anytime I want to. I know you, Keith. Set the bar higher. This didn't have to go this way. You could have just done your own private Idaho thing and lied to yourself. Now you're trying to lie to all of us.
But then we would have missed the opportunity to have Miss Andre reintroduced into the show vocab, and I thought it was worth it just for that. In fairness to Keith, it is a double standard. And yes, it can come across at times. I let women off the hook. You know who agrees with Keith to some extent? My wife does. She always takes the guy side, and I always take the women's side. Okay? I mean, she just pounds women. And I'm just hammering on the guys when we have these conversations at our house. But just for Keith and everyone else, I think the necessity of the men in this era and the state of the men that we need in this era, I'm going to err on the side that for every Keith that maybe I'm not being fair to, there's a lot of other guys that need to be cattle prodded. You see what I'm saying? I'm just going to gamble on that ratio. Right? Because here's what I don't share with you guys. That I could read a bunch of these notes too. A bunch of notes from guys thanking me. I mean, I just saw it out in Dallas last week. I saw it when I was out there with William Wolf and his group. The week before with Charlie Kirk and TPUSA Faith. The amount of men our age and younger who come up to me at these events and say, thank you for pushing me, prodding me. I needed it, and I listened. You guys finally got my attention, and I did this, and now my marriage is better. Now my relationship with my kids is better. All right, so yes, we are taking the risk of letting women off the hook and taking it easy on them. I admit that. But given the sorry collective state of the men of this era and how much we need the men of this era to stop being sorry, I'm willing to gamble on that being the overreach. I can't come up with a perfect ratio solution. So right now, I think most of the problems we have lie at the feet of the men. And so that's why I'm going to have the standard higher for them. Okay?
Yeah. I have 4 daughters.
Now, if you think I can't keep standards for women, go put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around Zoe and Anna and ask them what they think about that.
Say,
okay?
I am not known for letting women off the hook, but come on, man. I mean, you better move on because I'm going to make sure that this is the only letter we read if you let me.
Fair enough. All right, let's go here. I found your show through my older sister during COVID. We quickly became and remain huge fans. My husband frequently asks, well, what did your boys have to say today? I can't thank you guys enough for your boldness and willingness to speak biblical truth that has encouraged me more than you'll ever know. I lost my job as a physical therapist due to refusing the COVID jab. Very sorry to hear that. The amount of stress, pressure, and utter discrimination I endured has left me jaded to say the least. At the same time, my oldest daughter was forced out of her physician assistant program during her refusal to take it. She had completed 3 years and was one of the top students in her program. That's inexcusable. God was very good to us, though, and he not only provided me with a job that accepted my exemption, but also redirected my daughter's path to a different career. While I'm beyond grateful for the Lord's protection and provision, I very much struggle with feeling betrayed by so many other professing Christians who I hoped and expected would stand by us and support us. It has been difficult for me to forgive them because I feel like when further persecution comes, they will not be there to stand with me and my family. Therefore, I feel less committed to investing in them as friends. Is feeling this way sinful? No. Not forgiving them is. But you need to bifurcate here. So let me pause right there before we get to the rest of the note, okay? So I get this question answered in the context that she asked it. Forgiveness does not require full and total restoration. It does not require sustaining the relationship. It does not require opening yourself up to be completely trampled on, disappointed, and let down. That is not what it entails. All right, so let's make sure that we have a bifurcation between forgiveness and restoration. Okay? Those are two different things. All right, Paul does not say, when it's at all possible, okay, live in complete and total fellowship with everyone. Is that what he says? No. He says, when it's at all possible, live in peace with everyone. I have peace with the trans flag flying lesbian neighbors I have. I'm walking the neighborhood frequently. I might see the kids out in the yard. I'll stop and say hello or wave at the kids. I've helped them shovel themselves out of their driveway. But I'm in no version whatsoever of fellowship. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's no version of, I'm in peace, but I'm not in fellowship with this. Two totally separate things. Two totally separate things. All right? So don't conflate forgiveness with I have to let the person who did this to me completely and totally back in. No, you don't. Now, maybe you might, at some point, you might decide they might have earned that way. They might have earned that respect. And the Lord may have softened your heart based on what they have done for penance, for what they did to harm you, to let them back in. But that is a separate process from forgiveness. And I think we need to make sure everybody understands that, all right? That's a whole separate entity. Forgiveness is understanding that in reality, we have no case to hold a grudge against a fellow human. Because we are sinners too, and we deserve hell as well. Therefore, by the grace of God, go I. And so, Lord, teach us to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. All right? Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespassers, as we forgive those who trespass against us. So we are emulating Christ in forgiving our enemies, as he forgave us. Now, even though Christ is willing to forgive you, is everybody restored to Christ fully the same? Nope. That's why it's an individual relationship. So forgiveness is the understanding that we're not God, and only God has a case for bearing a grudge and holding it. Not to mention, it's what it does to our own mental and emotional health when we disobey God in this area and hold on to said grudge. You think you're getting over on the person who wronged you. They don't care. And all you're doing is recreating and re-swallowing all that bile inside of yourself all over again. You're warping you or risking that. You're not harming them, holding them accountable. They don't care. They're not aware of it at all. And bitterness and desolence and lack of contentment, not fruit of the Spirit. Exact opposite, in fact. So, yes, you have to forgive. But no, you don't have to restore, ever. There's nothing that says you can't just completely move on. And, I have another church community now. I found a show like this one and others where people are willing and standing the gap with me. That's who I'm fellowshipping with now. Good. But that's different than forgiveness, and restoration is not the same as forgiveness. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's continue. She writes, also, the mandates are far from over. The flu vaccine remains mandated in most healthcare settings, and it's difficult to get exemptions approved. If it is, you are treated like a threat to those around you and required to wear a mask all fall and winter. Fortunately, I currently have a boss who does not enforce discrimination, but I have severely limited employment opportunities due to these mandates. Again, I struggle with anger, resentment as I graduated valedictorian, have 29 years of experience, not to brag, but I'm an exceptional therapist, so it's very hurtful to say the least. As a Christian, I would advise anyone to be very aware of these things before getting a degree in healthcare. I am praying that RFK Jr., Marty, and Jay can make an impact, but I fear it won't be enough or even long-lasting if they do. Thank you guys for your time and keep bringing us the bold gospel truth. Also, I bought Nefarious for all my coworkers as a Halloween gift, and it opened up opportunities for good discussions about God, evil, and faith. That's from Tracy Brubaker.
I think, Tracy, one thing that might help is... this happened to you specifically, deeply impacted you, and so you take this personally. And that's where this can really get toxic if you don't manage it, like Steve said to. But then there's just the thing that they did that happened, and it really has nothing to do with you specifically. It just has to do with that what they did was damn evil and wrong. And that is deserving of not only yours, but many more people's umbrage, because they clearly still plan on doing to us. And you're just talking about one issue. We're living at a time right now, because we have so many luxuries and we still are able to move on in the face of such evil, or just would rather move on than address it. It's not just COVID. Look at all the decision in the Supreme Court about transgenderism surgeries is in Tennessee. There are people, as Steve does his post for COVID with the gallows, same thing. Like what they did was so wicked. It is literally worthy of death. We should never settle down about that. And I think you need to parse those things.
Yep.
That is a righteous anger. We need to have it on multiple fronts these days, way more than we do. But then when it comes to the individual, is that becoming my idol, my seething, my loathing? That's something where you and God have to have thing in right relationship.
So you're in that horizontal love your neighbor as you love yourself relationship both ways. You both forgive the people that keep trying to impose these stupid policies on you and persecuting you for it. However, you have to love the other neighbor as well, that they also want to persecute. They also want to impose these policies on, which means you have an obligation to stand for the other neighbor and say, hey, I forgive you guys. I don't hate you for what you think you're doing is right, but you're wrong. And I'm going to keep telling you that until you stop doing it, because you're harming other people here besides me. You see what I'm saying? You're not just in a horizontal love your neighbor as you love yourself relationship with the people who wronged you, but you're in one as well with the people they still want to wrong. And you're in a position where you can stand up for them in ways that those people can't stand up for themselves. That's what you're saying right there.
You shouldn't get to a point where they're cutting up kids. You're like, well, yeah, mistakes were made. No.
Yes.
That's heinous.
Yes, agree. That's a great point, Todd. Thank you for that intercession there. Well said. Melissa writes, I used to homeschool my younger two children, but they wanted to try public school and I caved. So my middle child has been in public school the last 3 years and my youngest is just 1 year. I'm appalled at the lack of education they are receiving and would like to homeschool again. However, my now husband isn't on board and uses worldly reasons why they should stay in the system. We are both Christians, but I don't think he has a very deep faith right now. I know that's between him and God, but I just don't see a lot of fruit. Anyways, I'm trying to make my point from a biblical perspective and even tried to compromise with him. Our school district allows 2 classes at the public school while homeschooling, but he believes that to be too much bouncing around. I will add my middle child didn't like being homeschooled and doesn't want to do it again. My youngest said he'd miss lunch with his friends, so I feel stuck now. I want to do what I believe would be in the best interest of my children, but I can't do it without my husband's blessing. I know God put the men in charge to lead families, but what are women supposed to do when a man isn't leading in a biblical direction? I don't believe we would spend enough time discipling them to combat what the school is quote-unquote teaching. I'd like to add that I am involved in my local Moms for Liberty chapter and go to school board meetings, so it's not that I'm just sitting back here. I know too much to be okay with the public schools. I volunteer in the school library and try my best to raise healthy children in this crazy world. Any advice would be appreciated. This is from Melissa. So Melissa, I'm going to give you an answer that may surprise you, okay? But you know what? Let me do it this way. There's a story in the Old Testament about Israel. And they're in the midst of conquering the tribes of Canaan. And one of the far-off tribes is starting to get word of what this new group of Jews are doing to all these pagan kingdoms in what will become known as the Holy Land. So they're like, we got to get out ahead of this, okay? And so they dress up like beggars. Isn't the beggars like they like dress up like beggars to make it look like came from like way far away, right? Yeah. Okay. And they said, hey, we've come from far away. Your exploits sound great. We've come to admire you guys, and we were just kind of hoping to join the cause here, basically, right? Okay. And so, the Israelites are like, oh, yeah, man, that sounds great. Okay. Well, the whole thing is a canard, all right? Because this civilization is from far away, but not as far away as they claim. They're actually from one of the civilizations they are being tasked by God to displace. Okay. But here's the thing, though. They gave them their word. They gave them their word they wouldn't conquer them. They gave them their word that they would just let them have sort of a subsistence level of citizenship in the kingdom of Israel. Now, you might think that God came in and said, hey, you guys screwed that up. That's not how we're doing things. So go make it right. That's actually not what he did. Because there's that whole let your yes be your yes and your no be your no thing. Okay? So he wanted to teach them a lesson. And the lesson he teaches them is, hey, you guys are basically my representatives here. And you gave your word, that this is what you're going to do. So you're going to fulfill it. So that you realize in the future, when tempted to make these kinds of compromises, when tempted to make these kinds of calculations, maybe pause, take a step back and realize maybe there's more going on here than exactly what I can expediently see. Does it make sense so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Melissa, my counsel to you, and by all means, go get a professional, your pastor, etc. But since you asked me, I'm going to give it. My counsel to you is that you need to let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. That what it would cause the uprooting of your family, because it's not now just vertical with you and your husband, but horizontal with you and the children now too. The amount of disruption that you asserting yourself in this manner, even though, is it in a manner that I would support? Well, yes. I homeschooled my own kids. Okay. But what it would require now, since you gave your consent to the previous path, the amount of uprooting it would cause would actually turn probably most of your family against you, making the likelihood of you being successful down this alternative path much lower in my view. So sometimes our job, when faced with an imperfect situation, is just to, as Alfred once said, endure. That's just sometimes what we do. All right. And sister, you're enduring. You're involved. You're going to the school board meetings. You're with your Moms for Liberty chapter. You're right. You cannot undo what is done at that school all day long. Take it, even if you're taking a half an hour at dinner every night, give it your best shot. I think you'd be amazed even what that would do. Would we have gay sex books in the schools? We don't. Listen. I love Vodi Bakum, which is why I like using this example. So I feel good. I feel okay about picking on the people I like, because then I don't feel like I'm like backstabbing somebody. Okay. We all don't have time for the Vodi Bakum family devotional plan. We just don't. I'm sorry, we don't. Can you imagine what would happen if every nuclear family in America even took 30 minutes at dinner just to deconstruct and discuss and download what went on at the school every single day? Can you even imagine what difference that would make? 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Just your kids knowing that you're paying attention, that you're engaged, that they bring something to your attention every now and then and you act on it. Not everything requires a 17-point catechesis. Listen, I'm a homeschool dad. I like 17-point catecheses, okay? But not everyone requires that, and not everyone has time for such things. So you've kind of cornered yourself here a little bit, frankly, Melissa, if I'm being honest. Okay? So I think in my view, based on what you've told me, I can only go by that, right? So I think based on what you've told me, I think the potential collateral damage of you trying to untangle yourself from this corner right now has a higher likelihood of causing spillover effect than you being even continuing to be diligent in investing in your kids when they're not at that school, and being at that school and that school board as much as you can be. And then I think you go with Paul's advice in Corinthians and in other places as a faithful wife, that your faithfulness to your husband and your children shine through so that you may win him to the Lord. That would be my advice and counsel to you in this particular situation. I may not have that advice for a woman in another situation, but based on what you've given to me and explained to me, again, I'm not an expert, but since you asked for my opinion, here's what it is. Based on what you told me, this is the best advice I could give. What do you guys think?
It's good advice. I would go to your husband. You have multiple children. Some of the concerns you have, I think, are going to be general. Just this is an environment that I think is bad for children in general, mine or not. And then you know your children individually, their age, and how they're impacted differently by different stimuli. I would go to your husband and say, listen, can you, here are my concerns. Can you relay to me then when a point of critical mass along the lines of my concerns would be reached where you would see that the need is to move them on and do it each one individually, and just have that conversation. And then say, thank you for having that conversation with me. And then I think both of you then should have it with the children individually and say, listen, these are our concerns. And maybe it's just one children who's like stepping up to the edge of getting in trouble or something like that, and say, listen, we've talked about this. We're all in this together. This is what we need from each other. And if it ever gets to this point, we're in agreement, we might need to make changes. I think that keeps everybody from guessing. I think maybe if your husband is of goodwill, he could buy into that. Like, we're not there yet, honey. I don't want to do it, but it's not that I don't appreciate your problems. And if they are there, I got your back. You might find that that's what you get. And the kids then need to know about the resolution that you had. Like, when it reaches this level of code red, we're just done. And we're all in this together, parents and children, and making sure we avoid the pitfalls. So that might be an option.
Yeah, I was reading a post recently. The sudden regime change in Iraq breeds a lot of mistrust and a lot of resentment. And it's a similar dynamic here. If you make a sudden change here, okay, we were homeschooled, now we're public schooled, now we're back to homeschooled again, that's going to breed a lot of resentment. I think you run the risk of that. Because as you were reading that letter, Steve, I was trying to rack my brain through how she could accomplish this in a way that honors her husband and remains faithful to her children as well. And I just can't come to it. So I think your counsel is good. But at the end of the day, I do think you need to engage with your husband to where it's a very intentional, if it's at the dinner table or whatever, to enlist him to help you to unprogram whatever has been tried to be programmed into your children. I think that's very, very important. And you can do that in a way that's not condescending, that's not nagging at all. You can just say, honey, this is a problem that I see. They're being told this at school. Can you help dissemble? I think that's as long as it gets, but I think Todd's advice, it's not an either or thing. I think you can do both at the same time. But yeah, trying to do a sudden change back to completely homeschooling, while that would be maybe the ideal situation in a vacuum, in what you've told us from this situation may not be quite as good. And it could be, with your husband's concerns about bouncing back and forth between like the hybrid model through the classes at the church, I think is what they were talking about, or Christian school or whatever. It could be on his part. It might be some form of laziness. It might actually be he's saying, man, our lives just cannot be this chaotic. We can't be bouncing back and forth every single day. The amount of stress that adds to the entire family, I'm trying to quell and protect. It could be something like that as well. So I just leave that there.
That's well said, Aaron. Let me just double back here. We got 2 minutes left in this segment. I think don't underestimate Todd's suggestion about putting a soft burden of expectations on your husband by suggesting that in a not in a Todders and douchebag with a heart way, okay? But in a feminine way, as the wife. Baby, I hear you. I want to just put on your radar that the time may come that this gets to a place where we may have to have these conversations again. Or what's your red line? Open-ended, all right? Put it on his radar, okay? Because here's the thing, too. Later, if he has to act, there's a difference between the feminine skill of getting men to do the right thing while making them think it was their idea the entire time, or becoming a nagging nabob, okay? One has way more success than the other, all right? So to make an alm to Keith from the top of this segment, I do think the women of this era in general, are way better because of the whole girl boss feminism phenomenon. They're way better or uniquely equipped for number 2 more than number 1. Okay? But there is a certain way that women can, shall we say, manipulate their men with their femininity into getting them to do the right thing while making them think it was their thought and idea the entire time. Empowering him. Okay? So I think Todd's suggestion of that kind of open-ended question, or just putting it on his plate for future, hey, bookmark this. Okay? I think that's wise. All right, I do. All right, we've been through 3 of these already, Erzen, so you better recognize.
You win.
This is what happens now when I become an LGBTQ FU best-selling author.
You win.
We're taking this to the next level, brother. The next level. 3 in a segment.
In my defense, we'd still be yelling at Keith if this was my show.
True. All right, more Feedback Friday in a moment. Stay tuned. Poor Keith.
The Steve Deace Show.
All All right, let's get right back to it here on a Feedback Friday. I'm doing this back to front this week because we're getting to the halfway point of the year, and some of you have sent in notes I've just been too delayed in getting to because I keep piling on with the new stuff, so I'm trying to do a make good this week. Mike Anderson says, top 10 TV series that need a reboot. Okay? Without a worldly worldview. He doesn't mean it that way. Right? They don't need to be wokeified. He just loved them when they were in the original iteration, would like to bring them back. All right? Number 10, G.I. Joe. No. Well, wait. After this last election, I think I'm open to it. But over the last, with the Biden-Obama era, I don't want, Lady Jane having a lesbian wedding, okay, with Scarlett, all right? Duke and Hawk are now in a sub-dom relationship as opposed to, superior and first officer. Snake Eyes is essentially, Lindsey Graham's go-between. We're not doing that. Now, I think with the Trump Hegseth team in charge, it might be safe to redo. Next to Super Friends, my favorite childhood cartoon growing up was G.I. Joe. Freaking loved G.I. Joe. Yo, Joe! Did you watch that Shipwreck? I watched them all. No one is half the battle, brother. I still say that today. Okay? It's a life lesson right there.
I got to do your favorite meme, though. How about grown men don't watch cartoons? How about?
Number 9 is Longmire. I feel like I should know this, but I don't. It sounds familiar to me.
Isn't Longmire like not even that old? Isn't it only like...
You're right, because the next one, 8 Deadwood, that's only like 10 or 15 years old, right?
We're supposed to remake shows that were just done?
Yeah.
Dude.
Number 7, he has Hunter. That's with the old Fred Dryer football player, right?
The old Patriot, yeah.
6, The Rifleman. That's the old Western with Chuck Connors, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still not feeling this list, though. I don't know.
Heroes. Was that the NBC thing where humans got superpowers or something?
Isn't that only like 10 years old?
Yeah. Early 2000s, I think. So about 20 years old. Number 4, I might have to fight you for this one. I don't think you remake Perfection. Okay. The A-Team. I think I'm going to be a no on that one. I think you just rewatch it again. As is.
Yeah, I mean, they tried it with a movie, and that didn't even do that well.
That movie was not good.
I never saw the movie.
I did. I mean, now Mr. T wants reparations. No, I don't. No. And instead of Hannibal closing every episode, when I love it when a plan comes together, you have a girl boss. No, I'd leave the A-Team alone. Fair? Now, this one I'm all in on. Okay? This is the first show I can ever remember being when it was live and because I was into Star Trek immediately, but it was already in reruns by the time that I came upon the show. The first show I remember as a kid that I was completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about, that was still in its first run, and my mom got me the lunchbox, everything. $6 Million Man. I do think with today's technology and stuff, I think this show would be dope. I'm in. I would be completely in on doing the $6 Million Man again.
What evidence of the current superhero genre that would be dope? We don't know what we're doing anymore. Did you see also Neurotic is reporting that the new Superman movie, it's predicted to make much less than earlier predictions?
I read the story. It actually is pretty much the predictions. I read the story he's talking about. The predictions are pretty much what they've been all along, somewhere between 100 and 140 million.
You said they were coming in under earlier predictions. That was the headline anyway.
Yeah, I know. I read the story. I didn't get that outcome. He might be right, but I didn't get that outcome. The movie's actually already outsold the Batman 2 in pre-sales. We'll see.
This list is showing we got at one point in our chronology we were 12 and 15 and 16, and now we're like older. We should do that, man.
Number 2, Highlander the series. I liked the movie as a kid. There can only be one. It was okay. I never watched the series though. Did you ever watch it?
I never watched the series.
Right. Number 1, I'm in on too. All right. Number 3, I'm all in on. I'm totally out on the A-Team. All right, totally out. Okay. I'm okay with The Rifleman. I'm totally in on the $6 Million Man. Many of these I could take it or leave it, but I'm totally also in on Greatest American Hero. I'm in on that. Okay. Remember that song? Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I mean, I would be in on that. All right, just a regular dude. That show only lasted like 2 seasons, man, but I freaking loved that show. All right, so
interesting. Guess how many episodes I've seen of any of those? shows that you just read.
Is this where you're going to say, but I'm a millennial?
0.0.
Thank you. Animal House. Thank you.
I haven't seen Animal House either. I just know the quote.
Yes. Tanya Strong, she writes, what's stopping a high school from trolling the Title IX system from just openly putting males on their all-girls teams in all sports to run the gauntlet and dominate state championships? I'd prefer a school that doesn't have girls with prospects of winning state titles to do this, but if they don't have any in their school and their parents are aware this is a true mockery of what's going on, why would that be wrong? It can't be seen as a slight against fair play since these males are already stealing wins. In other words, her point is, if you want to have a bunch of guys pretend to be girls, take opportunities from girls, then maybe what the guys should do is just go ahead and take the girls' places. The guys that they weren't good enough to beat the first time, and just go in there and beat these guys again. That's kind of what she is saying. Okay?
I get it, but it's too smart by half. The real question is what's stopping dads from just being dads and men and just doing what needs to be done? Maybe because they're watching too many TV redos.
Aaron, what do you think? You down for that or not?
What this requires, I mean, if the intent is to troll, that's a great troll. If the intent is to make a statement and put an end, then you're dancing around the issue, as Todd is saying. But as a troll, which is what was written here, it's a great troll.
If you, what reward would the Steve Deace Show give 10, 18-year-old dudes who just decided, we're going to solve this?
Man of the year.
You're our guys.
Man of the year.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But also ask yourself
But it's got to be like DeSantis dropping illegals off at Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
It's not a solution, all right?
Right.
It is a troll to expose a wider scam.
That's a great comparison. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. I've been holding on to this one, but I think it's really timely now with all the tariff stuff that was, in the news before Iran. I've spent decades working in the trenches of U.S.-China textile trade. Over the years, I've seen a quiet shift, one that now threatens to collapse the foundation of legitimate American commerce. Here's the reality. The 145% tariff Trump suggests sounds tough on paper, but it's not going to touch the worst offenders. Chinese cross-border e-commerce sellers, tens of thousands of them, have found a workaround, and it's not subtle. They routinely declare a fraction of the real invoice value, sometimes 10%, sometimes less. Their customs brokers handle the rest, filing the paperwork, setting up shell importers, arranging the terms. Everyone in the chain is in on it. And platforms like Amazon, they turn a blind eye because the volume is too profitable to disrupt. This isn't a gray area. It's a shadowy economy built on systemic tariff evasion and tax avoidance. And it's now fully normalized within the industry. And the reason China hasn't come to the table this time, unlike 2016, is because they no longer have to. They've weaponized cross-border e-commerce, and our enforcement mechanisms haven't yet to caught up. I've put together a report that explains this in detail, structures, actors, and how the operation sustains itself. It's the kind of thing, if we're serious about defending American jobs and restoring a fair trade, this has to be dealt with first. That's from Tim Odell. Now, obviously, again, remember, these are older notes that I just kept not getting to. China has come to the table for some form of a deal. We'll see if they live up to it. But that just was announced about a week or two ago. Okay, but he says again they're creating layers of scam artistry here in order to get around and try to get out ahead of any of our particular attempts to rein any of this in whatsoever and make it a one-to-one industry.
I have no problem believing every part of that is true. This was going to be complex no matter what, but I also know this. It wasn't very long ago that Trump did far less vis-a-vis upsetting the China apple cart, that they were so threatened by it that they poisoned us. So obviously, Trump doing far more this time around is not without effect. This is going to be a heavyweight back and forth. It's going to go 15 rounds, and that's what I respect about it's been a little while since we talked about tariffs. This has just kind of been the status quo now, but this is way more honest than what our free trade lies we tell ourselves and the compromises only we make on our side and everybody else gets away with murder. They're still going to try to get away with murder. But what's happening now, there's no guarantee of victory, but it's more honest.
Again, how does your free market theory, classical economics, account for what Steve just read? Mm-hmm. How does it account for it?
Yeah.
What would Milton Friedman say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. I mean, the reality is...
We're not dogging on Milton Friedman, by the way. What we're just saying is, what do you do when you're not an industry, but you're essentially a racket, right?
Yes. And what the crucial thing here is that China dominates the labor capital, okay? They have so much of it, and they can pay them so cheaply that basically, well, we just, it's more profitable to manufacture our goods over there. It's more profitable. It's more profitable. It's more profitable to get our rare earths from China. More profitable. Are you noticing a pattern here? There's just too much. So if you just completely divorce capitalism from any sort of moral foundation,
like college football, for example.
You're titans of whatever industries. And say what you want about Elon Musk. Much of his, even raw materials that he makes for his cars, much of that, and they're all assembled here, and he's got factories in other parts of the world, but the ones that are made here are that are sold here are manufactured here. He does a really good job of sourcing his materials as best as he can from the American and American-only supply chain. And I don't know why he does that. Maybe that's just something that he values. Mm-hmm. But I'm just telling you, what we have been engaging in the West has not been capitalism. It's not been true capitalism, I guess I should say. It's just been cronyism on different levels.
Cronyism, mercantilism, corporatism.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That was fantastic, Aaron. Way to come on. That was the right moment to come off the top rope with that. All right. This is from Joseph Meyer. He says, you claim you hate being lied to, that lying to you is the worst thing someone can do to you, essentially, where you are being lied to. There's a strong argument to be made that JFK was the last free president freely in America. He was the original, I'd say, only drain the swamp president. He actually fired 4 deep state men. Allen Dulles was key amongst those firings. Dulles was a section chief in Europe during the war, and he had actually met Goebbels and Hitler and was fond of them. He'd even spoken to Stalin on the phone. Dulles worked for the precursor to the CIA, a product of Operation Underworld. Dulles was key in the organized crime intelligent oligarchy's takeover of America. They thought they had total control prior to Kennedy, but the young lad snuck into office with the narrowest of margins, leveraging that new tech called television in a debate. Now, what's ironic about this is Joseph says we're being lied to, but the reality is most people believe that Jack Kennedy got elected because of the mob. Because his dad, Joe, worked with the mob to steal the state of Illinois. And that was what put him over the top, pardon me, in the Electoral College. I mean, that's I don't know if that's true either, but that's been the mythology that I've heard all my life.
Yeah.
That Joe worked with the mob, and then that's why the mob killed Kennedy because after he became president, his brother became RFK Sr., went after the mob as Attorney General, and they viewed that as a betrayal since they got the Kennedys elected. That's why they killed him and took him out. That's one of the common theories of the Kennedy assassination, correct?
Yeah.
Well, apparently Joe has found the lie within the lie within the lie.
Is he Joe Pesci's character? It's a riddle wrapped up in it.
Yeah, great movie, great character, right? They thought they had total control prior to Kennedy, but the young lad snuck into office with the narrowest of margins, leveraging that new tech called television in a debate. The Kennedy brothers were certainly connected, but held idealistic hopes that they were in line with the traditional American dream. The feud between the Kennedys and the deep state culminated the CIA murdering the Kennedys and other social influencers. They murdered your president in broad daylight and don't mess with Texas state in November 1963. They seized the executive branch and have never given it back. I think it's laughable a man with your intellect believes Donald Trump, a lifelong New York Democrat, friend of the Clintons, organized crime connected, Epstein elite, is actually on the side of the people. Even our beloved Reagan was tied up with the deep state. Deep state attorney Roy Cohn was instrumental in getting Reagan into the Oval and made many appearances there. Reagan was hemmed up by the same networks that Diddy and Epstein were tied to. How is it possible a man with your intelligence and research prowess doesn't know this? Like Deace researching for his book Fauci and Bargain, who knew he should not know more than Fauci, found himself puzzled and asking better questions. I too am puzzled that you're not still doing so. Did you sell out to the deep state, Steve? This in no way is any kind of a secret sign or anything to the deep state to let them know I'm down to clown. Okay. How do you not understand that nobody makes it to the general election without the stamp of approval by the organized crime intelligence oligarchy, commonly referred to as the deep state? The hype of left versus right is just that, man, hype. It's not Republicans versus Democrats. No, both these parties work for the same apparatus that murdered Kennedy. Their job is to play the role of actors like Reagan. Trump is an entertainer, same as Biden, same as Obama, same as Bush, same as Clinton, same as Bush Sr., who was the 11th dictator of the CIA and was on Reagan's ticket, who was a great actor. You've been lied to, Steve. Joseph Meyer.
I have a question for Joseph. Is the deep state in the room with you right now? And I also wonder, Joseph, I trust that you are somewhere like 60 or 100 feet below ground in a bunker somewhere in like the New Mexico desert. Because for you to believe all that and then take all the time to write this show, I mean, how many paragraphs was that, Steve?
A few.
I mean, I would have to think if you really believe that, then you would have gotten as far off the grid. Maybe you've got Starlink, but gotten as far off the grid as possible.
In all seriousness, here is why I included Joseph's email. And this is the benefit of a biblical worldview. Even if everything Joseph wrote here turns out to be 100% correct, it doesn't change. It doesn't change the mission at all. And without a biblical worldview, you don't have that level of direction and purpose. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, unless your government is completely complicit in a 14-dimensional conspiracy, right? Pardon me. Correct? Is that what it says? Love your neighbor as you love yourself, unless you have uncovered the flowchart of how multiple different generations of corruption within a permanent bureaucracy has rendered your vote as something that really doesn't matter. Is that what it says? No. And what are the two greatest commandments? The ones I just cited. One of them is not uncover the flowchart of satanic kingdoms. Doesn't say not to do it either, right? Doesn't say don't have that discernment, but you my friend, you need you're lacking direction. Even if everything you said was right, you're still made in the image of God. You still have more. You were still blessed with more than you ever deserved. Not to mention a chance to live with God forever. That wouldn't change. Anything you just wrote, all that's still the same. You still have people that you love and that love you. Even if all of that is true, you still have access to the most important truths in all the universe. And I think it's very important that we all remember that here when we have times like this of confusion and we lack clarity. That's the ultimate clarity I just gave you right there. Pardon the sneeze. I'm in the draining stage of this week's sinus infection. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday. Todd and I will return to the heat after the cool of Southern California. That's weird to say, but that's going to happen. Until then, Romans 8:28.